Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by South Point Dodge. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined every day by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Tell us where you're checking in from on this first day of May here. Spring is in the air, guys. Tell us what you're drinking. Get your questions in. We're going to get to those. We got a couple of guests later today and a lot to talk about. There's also a lot going on this weekend on the 40 acres, fellas. We got baseball, softball, a couple of other things happening. And Bobby, I'm going to let you start with some of those couple of other things.
Yeah, well, Texas. You mentioned softball. Arkansas is in town. Ladies lost last night 2-0 to Arkansas in softball. SEC's a tough road right now in women's sports. Then baseball hosts Mississippi State. You talked about that, Blake. You'll have a little update for us there. But from a recruiting standpoint, it's going to be interesting. Texas kind of recruiting some donors this weekend officially. There's expected to be some Lambos and stuff like that out at Moncrief Newhouse. They're doing a little bit of an NIL perspective, inviting some major donors in to give them a tour and treat them like recruits this weekend, hopefully to raise some more money for NIL. It should be a fun time for those guys and an opportunity for Texas to deepen its coffers when it relates to NIL at this point. Blake, the question I had on baseball, Sloss had some interesting things to say about Mississippi State actually themselves. This is a big series for Texas. They've been winning, but some other teams are maybe being a little bit more dominating right now. So what's going on with baseball?
Yeah, so it's it's the SEC number one, so it's always going to be tough. But Texas right there, third in the conference rankings behind Georgia and Texas A&M. Number 10, Mississippi State comes to town, and I know there's a few SEC teams ranked ahead of them. But I had a scout tell me, I guess it was probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago, that when it comes to all-around talent, it's Texas, Mississippi State, and then a huge gap between everyone else. So I know Mississippi State had some midseason stumbles. They haven't looked as sharp as they did, earlier in the year. However, they are still very, very talented. There's a reason that they're still in the top 10 despite those stumbles. So it's going to be a tough outing. It's going to be a very tough outing this weekend. And from what I've heard regarding the weather, is that they want to do everything they can to make sure they don't have to play a doubleheader this weekend. So, whether that's a late start and a very late start tonight, I think the weather through Austin is going to be done around 7:30ish, somewhere in there. So we'll see what happens, but it wouldn't surprise me if we have a much later start than normal tonight for that first game of the Mississippi State series.
Yeah, they're Mississippi State's leading home run hitters from Canton, Texas, by the way. Ace Reese is from along I-20 there, Canton, Texas, just west of Tyler. So their big home run hitter is a Texan. They also have a lot of homegrown talent on that Mississippi State team, which, Mississippi's not talked about as a big-time high school baseball state, but they have a lot of really talented in-state players at Mississippi State in baseball.
No. Don't know that Michael Dell will be one of those donors, by the way. I did see someone. I would trade places with someone today. I saw someone saying that they're down near Port A, ready to drink some coffee and then go out there and do a little fishing. It's raining here in Austin area right now, and kind of a dreary last few days in Austin, actually.
Oh, it flooded yesterday in parts of Austin. It was South Austin. It was crazy. Really. Yeah, hell, a ton of rain down there. So, by the way, basketball, Mikey Lewis, who's already signed with Texas, is scheduled to be on campus this weekend for his visit. A lot of times in the portal, these guys sign and then get on campus when need be, right? I mean, if you need to get them signed beforehand. So he'll be on campus this weekend. Elijah Freeman, who already signed with Texas, early next week. So we're going to get to recruiting. People are asking about John Meredith. We'll get to that in a few minutes.
Yep. We got a lot to get to this morning. But first, Bobby, I'm going to let you tell everyone about South Point Dodge.
I can do it. Longhorn fans, if you've been thinking about upgrading your ride, now's the time. We're talking about big price reductions on Ram 1500s, 2500s, and 3500s, plus Jeep Wranglers and Grand Cherokees. Here's the kicker. On Texas football listeners, get 90 days before your first payment, and South Point Dodge will ship your new ride anywhere you are. Over 600 vehicles in stock, ready to roll for tailgates or holiday road trips. Check out southpointdodge.com or swing by I-35 in South Austin. Get to the point at South Point Dodge.
All right, Bobby. Well, you wrote an article over on texasfootball.com this morning. And by the way, if you're not a member, now's a good time to come join us, join the community over there. But regarding, we've had a lot of questions too on coffee and football, but regarding where players that transferred out have gone, where they've landed, that type of deal. I see that question almost daily here in the chat. And so you did some research and kind of figured all that out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's always good to try to do a retrospective to get a take, at least give you a viewpoint that's just separate from the echo chamber that can be Texas media, right? So we always want to try to be realistic. Obviously, we all cover Texas for a living, so it can be Texas centric, but these are all young men that transferred out. And I tried to track every single one of them after they left the University of Texas this winter and where they're at right now. Obviously, you can look at a couple of different positions. I mean, look, everybody bemoans the offensive line at Texas. They've got 3 starters elsewhere right now that were all backups last year. Connor Stroh, Daniel Cruz, Nato. And then Nick Brooks and Nate Kibble are both backups. Nick Brooks got beat out, it looks like, at left guard at the last week. But 2 running backs starting, Trey Weiser and CJ Baxter starting right now. DeAndre Moore, Parker Livingston, and somewhat surprisingly, Jamie French starting. Now there's some, and I wrote this on Texas Football, there's some debate up in Ann Arbor whether or not French is actually starting or he's just running with the first team currently because of some other issues going on in the wide receiver room right now. Jordan Washington, a young man out of North Carolina, finished actually the spring second team for North Carolina, but we removed that a little bit because he's injured currently, and we'll see where he ends up and if he's even able to play in 2026. Trey Owens out of the gate there, the quarterback, is battling for QB1 with a transfer from Vanderbilt, Jerry. Will Stone, obviously the former kickoff specialist at the University of Texas, was not going to be the kicker, the place kicker for Texas. So he decided to transfer, and he has won that job over at Central Florida too.
Yeah, so I'm going to remain the same as I did when these guys transferred out. There'll be some of these guys that'll end up – there'll be a couple, 3, 4 that end up getting drafted. There'll be quite a few that end up in NFL training camps. And that's why I say just because guys transfer away doesn't mean they're not going to end up. Development is still in front of a lot of these guys, really good players. And there will be some guys that were part of Texas signing class, no different than any other Georgia, Ohio State, these schools that recruit a bunch of talented players and guys transfer out, especially as high a frequency as guys are transferring out now due to NIL or whatnot, that are going to end up in getting drafted or in NFL training camps. And, I would say this, just because guys are second team right now, these are young players. Doesn't mean their careers are over. Doesn't mean they're not going to end up being really good players. That's what I would say. And Will Stone's having the best time of anybody. Just go check out his Instagram. The guy's playing it. The guy's playing golf at all the nice courses in Florida. He's having a great time. Good for him.
Hey, Jerry, the wide receivers, does that surprise you? 3 starters out of that group? I mean,
no, I think DeAndre Moore is going to get drafted.
Okay.
And I think Oklahoma, I think Parker Livingston is the same as he was at Texas, will be the same as he is at Oklahoma. A steady player for them, a steady player. Jamie French, we'll see. I mean, Jamie French, I think, is very talented player. It's all about the side. For a lot of guys, it's just about the side. What do you want? Where do you want football to take you? Because a lot of these guys have a lot of talent. Where do you want football to take you? Are you happy with NIL? Do you then at some point say, okay, that's been great, but now it's time to actually go see what I can do in this game? I think NIL's brought in a lot of different scenarios for some of these guys, and they have to at some point they the NIL part is fun and it was great initially, but then are you starting to lose the dream a little bit? You have to kind of refocus for some of these guys. There's a lot of guys here, like I said, that I think will end up in some NFL training camps. So it's going to be interesting to see. And all these guys, I think, will end up playing for the universities they're at if they stick there.
Hey, LaVon Johnson, Jerry, I mentioned Jamie French being maybe the surprise, but LaVon Johnson, I mean, he was buried on the depth chart. I mean, third or fourth. He was not going to be in the top 4 rotation in 2026 for Texas. He's running first team at Maryland at defensive tackle. Is that just indicative of the lack of depth most teams have in college football at the defensive tackle position? Because that's what it says to me.
Because look, he was limping around half the time last year. He was. I never thought that guy looked healthy at Texas, and now he's back at Maryland as a starter, where he was as a starter before he left for Texas. So he almost took a gap year in football, is what happened. But he never looked healthy to me.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. We never saw his best.
Yeah.
We never saw his best.
All right, guys. I believe one of our special guests for the day is here, Coach Bob Shipley. Good morning, Bob.
Ain't nothing special about this guest.
Yes, there is. Hey, Blake's been doing awesome on these graphics lately. I don't know if you've noticed some on the morning show, Coach, but he's been killing it on these graphics. He brought one up a couple days ago. It may have been yesterday, day before, that I said, man, we got to show this to Bob Shipley just so we can see the grin behind the computer. Here it is. Look at this. That Shipley name is up there twice, Coach. What do you think of that?
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
Is that the best you got for us? Wow, that's crazy. Come on now.
Yeah.
Hey, well, Coach, what was great about when Blake brought this up, to me, it's one, we're looking at, okay, which Texas receiver could end up maybe on this list at some point. I said Jermaine Bishop because he's got the most time left at Texas. And obviously Ryan Wingfield had a huge year. But you know what was crazy to me is it brought back up a point you brought up on our shows. What would happen to a Cam Coleman? He's not going to be in the record books at Texas like this. What happens if he goes out and does some of the unthinkable and wins a Heisman or something? What happens to him from a University of Texas perspective? And I thought that you brought up a great point about these guys who transfer in for a year. I mean, Mendoza won a Heisman at Indiana. He's not in their record books it's statistically, other than single season stuff, not much career wise. But you brought up such a great point, that the changing in thought process in college sports now.
Yeah, I think it's something that the powers that are going to be making this decision. I don't even know who actually makes. I know there are some criteria. You have to win a national award of some type, I think, to have your name honored on the stadium. But yeah, these not to be negative, but you hired a one and done gunslinger to come in, and yeah, I'll tell you, it's going to be hard for anybody to get in those record books unless they come in and star as a freshman, because they're not going to be here 4 years anymore. That's just not, and especially ones that like you said, Cam Coleman transferring in. But yeah, so I like to ask that question when I'm around people from different colleges. What I asked a big tech guy yesterday. I said, what, say that wouldn't happen with your quarterback and he wasn't in trouble, and they come in and make a national championship run or whatever, he wins the Heisman, you put his name up there. And he goes, oh, I wouldn't. I mean, these guys have invested in this program for years, and with their teammates. You hire a gunslinger to come in, and then is he? If he wins a Heisman Trophy, it'd be hard not to put his name up there. You have to honor that. That's the greatest honor in college football. But short of winning a Heisman, I'm just way more of a team guy. You know,
Yeah, it's almost seems like, to your point, you're looking for people that have put the blood, sweat, and tears in on multiple years, not just one, right? It doesn't diminish what they do
no,
in that single year. I mean, but look, even Joe Burrow, one of the greatest years in college football history. I mean, a lot of people still claim him as an Ohio State guy at times because he's from the state of Ohio, transferred to LSU. Look, he's ended up being a great quarterback. So I'm not trying to diminish anything he did at LSU, but it's interesting to me where, to Coach's point, where all this is going as it relates to it. I will say this as it relates to the Shipley family name. I think Jackson and Jordan are both safely on that top 10 list for quite a while. So congratulations to the Shipley.
well, thank you. The one that we couldn't outrun everybody, we couldn't outjump everybody. I'm talking about the Shipley boys, but the one that we're high on is career receptions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jordan's number 1 and Jackson's number 3.
Oh, that's great, man.
Yeah, on career receptions. But anyway, golly, yeah, I tell people this sometimes. Remember, what was it, Smokey and the Bandit? Remember, what was it? Was it Jackie Gleason? What was it?
It was
Top
Jackie.
name. Yeah. And he tells his knucklehead son, Jethro Bodine looking guy, I can't believe somebody like you came from my loins. That's kind of where I am when I see those graphics and think back on how incredibly blessed they were to not have their father's genetics.
Hey,
I
Coach,
cannot believe we just got a Smokey and the Bandit reference.
one of the things we talked about yesterday was Devin Duvernay caught 106 passes his final year at Texas and was not credited with a drop. You've watched your boys catch a lot of passes, and you've watched a lot of guys catch a lot of passes at Texas. How impressive is that, really?
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. The one pass, I don't have any idea how many passes that Jordan and Jackson dropped. But the one pass, it's kind of like Blake Gideon, that game at Texas Tech, the one pass that Jordan dropped was in that game. And it was just like there was a funk over the whole team. Y'all have probably seen the documentary. I mean, it's just like, wow, what, and it should have been a touchdown, and he dropped it. And that's something that's hard to forget, when you're a reliable receiver, but Devin Duvernay's season was second to none, in my opinion. I mean, you understand how difficult it is just out there playing catch, not to drop a ball, and then, to have somebody chasing you and trying to take your head off at the same time, and the quarterback under duress, and all this stuff. I mean, just unbelievable statistic.
Strong hands too.
Oh my!
Just really, you can just tell.
And a great kid,
Unbelievable guy,
great young man,
unbelievable guy.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Hey, Coach, we're looking at this, and one of the things we just talked about earlier is a number of players transferred out of Texas and are now headed elsewhere, or have been headed elsewhere, and ended up at Oklahoma to Parker Livingston, or Kentucky with Bo Barnes and C.J. Baxter. Just a number of guys. Any thoughts on those players that you want to bring up as they go and try to do something elsewhere? Ideas.
I always thought French was going to come through at some point. I was a little disappointed that he never did, but obviously, currently starting at Michigan, that's a pretty good step, for him being buried in our depth chart, or I don't know, it may say more about Michigan's roster than it does, but the running backs don't surprise me. Those guys starting. It's the thing I like about it is guys that weren't gonna break into our top. You need great backups, but these guys have aspirations and dreams, and they want to play and go to a North Carolina State, or go to somewhere where you can play and do what you've trained your whole life to do. And one thing is interesting. I think I don't remember who it was that had a graphic. It might have been CJ. It may not even been on OTF, but a breakdown of the draft and the number of players that transferred.
Oh yeah.
What was that? Was that the entire draft or just
48%?
48% of the entire draft transferred in from somewhere or out, I guess. Yeah. So 40, I mean, basically 50-50 now.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. And I wonder how many of them played for multiple schools.
Beyond just two, you mean? Like
yes. I'm talking about 3 or more.
Yeah. I don't know that anybody tracked that. It's a good question, but a lot transfers, and Bob, this, used to have like the scarlet letter written on their patch. They might as well have the big A, there, because they were somebody else's problems that came over to your team. That's just that connotation no longer works. It's no longer appropriate. They are attracted to your teams. Rasheem Biles, there ain't nothing about him that has a scarlet letter, or Cam Coleman or Melvin Sion. I mean, my point being, it's interesting. I will say another thing, just to add to that. I actually think you may be onto a little something about the multiple transfers.
Yeah.
Like not just one, but 2 transfers. At what point does that become a very big drag on your career? Or is it you just keep going up? I mean, I don't know, but I think it could be a drag because you're not giving yourself time to develop in a single system, even if it's 2 years. Like Joe Burrow started it at Ohio State and then just went to LSU and developed, right? How does that work? I wonder if we could ever find. I think you may be onto a little something there.
Yeah, I don't know, but it also is a red flag for guys that are chasing money above being developed and above being a good teammate. And I mean, I don't blame guys while you have the opportunity, but if it becomes the most important thing to you, then that will surface at some point, and your development will suffer from it because you can't go to 3 different places and continue on an upward trend in your development, because you got to start over every time with the system, and time that you should be using to develop yourself or be developed, you're having to learn a system. And so it's like all of a sudden, you're wearing sprinting shoes and now you're in big army boots, you slow yourself down. But it would also be, and there's another thing Rod and I, CJ talked about last night on the winning drive. Do you need to hire private detectives now to check out guys before you sign them?
Yeah, in the portal, yes.
Well, you spend $6.5 million on them, yeah.
Yeah, 100% agree, Coach. It needs to be like the NFL and NBA.
Wow.
I think so.
No wonder that. I mean, we always – I mean, I had – when Kenny Vaccaro was being drafted, I was the head coach at Brownwood, and I got calls all the time. Some people even drove they wanted to see his house. They wanted to see where he lived. And, they check him out. They check him out. But apparently I don't know how Tech could have known had somebody not tipped him off, but it's just maybe a good lesson for everybody here to, make sure there's no skeletons in that closet before you dish out that kind of money and get egg on your face.
Hey, it's one thing. Hey, Coach, it's one thing if it's a player that's going to be a starting guard or even down the depth chart. It's another thing when it's the face of your program.
Yes.
And you're spending $6.5 million on them.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a level there. I mean, you may not need a PI for all 24 of the guys.
But maybe your top 5 or 6 is your big money players.
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
I agree. I agree. And Coach, I think you're really on to something on the multiple transfers in pro. And like there's always some scenario out there, right? A kid that went JUCO, then maybe went to a G5 and then graduated up to the major leagues and then got drafted, right? But for the most part, like I didn't have time to go through an NFL draft. I went through the 2025 WNBA draft real quick when you were talking about that. Guys transferred twice, not 3 times, that got drafted. There were no 3-time transfers outside of a kid that went D2 and, was just an unknown, grew late type of thing. But I think you're 100% on to something, because my opinion is, now there's coaching change. There's always the outlier, right? But my opinion on this, coach, is after a second transfer, guys like, oh, the NFL dream's not happening like I thought it was going to on the, because these kids all think they're going to be 3 and dones that are ranked high coming out of high school. And the reality is there aren't many of those. And you start losing that dream, then you just start transferring, you and the agent start transferring to make as much money as you can in college. And you kind of leave the dream of football to maximize your dollars in college. And I think we see that a lot, and we're seeing it more and more. I think you're onto it.
I was just thinking in my head about Texas and the players they got in the portal this year. At least 3 of them have been to multiple schools, and 2 of them are in the backfield. I mean, Raleek Brown started at USC, then went to Arizona State for a couple of years, and is now at Texas. Hollywood Smothers signed with OU out of high school, ended up over at NC State. Now he's at Texas. Melvin Siani started at Temple, went to Wake Forest, and now is at Texas. Now, that's a little bit different than Smothers or Brown, who kind of, bopped around from major school to major school. Siani went from Temple to Wake to Texas. So I
think there's a difference. Yeah. There's a difference in that pattern.
Yeah. And so I'm just, Rasheem Biles was straight from Pitt. Bo Masco straight from Rutgers. Sterling Buckhalter, I think, just started at Wake Forest, right, Jerry? So there was a couple that Texas took that are in that category. Obviously, Lawrence Seymour, who we believe is potentially going to be the starting left guard. I mean, he's been at 3 schools already. So
let me ask you this: do you think do you think in the contracts these kids sign, there's a disclosure that they have to sign that says, is there anything that we need to be aware of that could cause you to be ineligible, or whatever it is, any accusations, anything, and when they sign this and they say, no, there are no skeletons in my closet, there's nothing that's ever going to come up, they have to repay the NIL money if something comes up or something like that. Is there anything like that in the contracts?
So this is the issue. No, the contracts are not boilerplate. So Texas's contract is not Texas Tech's. Texas Tech's is not Notre Dame's. The only conference that tries to do boilerplate that I'm aware of is the Big Ten, and even that can be strayed from. But what you're specifically talking about is like a morality clause,
right,
of some sort. Like, you can't be caught gambling, or else you're, that sort of thing. It just all depends on whether or not that specific team put in that specific clause, Coach. And frankly, I will say this: that also depends on the player's own lawyer. Like, lawyers can refuse, say, "Oh, no, you're not going there," if that clause remains in. And everybody else on the team could have that clause, but one person might not. And so it's when you don't have a CBA, a collective bargaining agreement like the NFL does, or one of the other major leagues, you deal with these contracts that are they're not, they try to make them as boilerplate as possible, but ultimately they're not uniform across the board. But that's a great question.
Hey, Coach, I got a question for you. And I put you on the spot. We haven't talked about this on a show. If you could make one rule change in college football right now, headed into the 26th season, does anything immediately pop into your mind?
One rule change about the game itself?
Yeah, about the game itself. Is there anything that kind of irritates you, or you say, I kind of putting you on the spot because we hadn't talked, but I just never been able to it had never come up, and I don't know why it just popped into my head. Because we're getting right into the season. Do you like the 2-minute stop? Like, do you
Yeah,
like?
I do. I mean, it gives you another timeout, basically. It can help stop momentum if you're trying to stop it. But I think we're heading in the right direction with some things. Being an old school guy, I hate the fact that they've softened the game. But let me tell you, I'm all about protecting the players because, I watched Jordan get knocked out when he was with the Bengals against the Browns.
Right.
And, it's one thing, to be hooping and hollering, if you're the team that had the defensive guy that lays someone out. But always remember, there's some parents over there that probably have fallen to the floor on the knees, when they see their son get hit like that, and it's difficult to watch. But so, I'm old school, you tough guy, all that stuff, but let's protect the players, without sacrificing the integrity of the game, and making it something. I tell you, the one thing that I'm fired up about, women's flag football. Man, I tell you, if my oldest daughter Shelby would have been younger, I'm telling you, she would. So people would laugh because when Jordan was playing at Burnet and the teams would go in, Shelby never wore shoes. She was barefooted, and like after the band or before the band would get on the field, she and Jackson would go out there and play catch, and they would be launching the ball like way further than a girl would be launching it. And Jackson throws it to her, and she's running full speed. And I mean, she may have had the best hands. She has my hands. I have big hands. She has my hands. I mean, she got man hands, and she had great hands. She would have tore up. As a matter of fact, in Coppell when we were there, they have an all-out tackle. It's powder puff, but there's nothing powder puff about it. It's full contact tackle football game. And it has nothing to do with the school. They go to a place and they play it. And I can't remember the guy that was the strength coach for the Cowboys at the time. His daughter was playing, and it was seniors versus juniors. Shelby was a senior, and she has the ball. And she takes off running, and it's I'll think of the names as soon as I get off there. But she grabbed Shelby by the ponytail and yanked her. And Shelby hit the ground and just went right after her. They had to separate him, and all that stuff. And so then it was on after that. I mean, it's full tackle football, girls. It was unbelievable. It's a tradition they've done for years there. Non-sanctioned by the school or anything. And it's just it's like a street fight because the whole field is just surrounded by hundreds and hundreds of people watching it.
No, it's good.
Coach, you're spot on about it. You're spot on. It's growing fast. Under Armour football camps, I think it's 6 venues this year on a Saturday had a girls' flag camp. And they're packed. They're sold out. They're packed. And that's it. So they had 6 different venues. I think of their 10 where they run Under Armour high school football camps for rising high school football players. They had the girls' flag football camps, and they were packed, every single one of them. It's growing.
I got to say this. I thought when you were asked, Coach, like what rules you would change, given that your sons were actually pretty good return guys, I hate what the return game has become from kickoffs. Now, punts, nothing's changed. But why don't they move the kickoff guy back to the 30 or to the 25 or whatever and have real return game, as opposed what happened was the legs got so big that it was just preposterous, right? They were just kicking them through the end zone. And it still happens in college football, 60-70% of the time. It's a nothing burger. It's like might as well put another commercial in there. And it used to be one of the most exciting parts of the game. I wish they would figure out a way to get that back into the game. And I want to say
that's the most exciting thing.
Yeah, I want to say this. I don't think it's the NFL model. Like, I don't like the bloop kick. Make them kick it from the 25. If your legs are that big, I don't know. Maybe I'm.
Well, it's like the complaints that they're making about golf now. A par 5 not a par 5 anymore because the equipment's superior. The guys are weights and the guys are bigger, they're taller, longer levers. So they're talking about maybe changing the ball. So the ball won't go as far. It's a lot cheaper than extending a golf course.
That's right.
But anyway, it's the same thing, Bobby. But man, I'm telling you. Maybe it's because of Jordan's return against Oklahoma, but there's nothing more exciting than a kickoff return for a touchdown. I mean, it can change a game so fast. I was talking to a coach yesterday who was playing against Wall in the playoffs, and it was a 14-7 game. They had just scored with like a minute left before halftime, and they kicked off, and Wall ran it back for a touchdown. And just completely crushed their momentum, changed the game, and their kids had their heads down and everything. And it's just like, man, kickoff. Yeah, I love it. It's dangerous. It's dangerous because you got guys running full speed trying to take your head off at your shoulders, but.
Marcus Myers is in the chat. And I will say this, Marcus Myers used to cover kicks.
Yeah.
So it's not so much the return guy like the Shipleys. It's the Marcus Myers that are worried about knees.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Coach, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Bandit reference. Never can get enough of those. I need to go buy myself a black Trans Am with T-tops. Commemorate the time, Coach.
Yeah. All right, y'all take care.
All right, have a good one, Coach.
Be good. Hey, we got our next guest coming up, Barry Tramel, Tulsa World. We're going to talk a little OU football north of the border here. But first, let's do a couple of ad reads, if you don't mind. Let's start with Mint Mobile. Every group has someone who insists on doing things the hard way. That friend who is still paying for a subscription they forgot they had. The one refusing to update their phone because it still works. I used to be that person too, especially when it came to overpaying for wireless. Then I switched to Mint Mobile. And I'm so glad I did. Stop paying way too much for wireless just because that's the way it's always been. Ready to stop paying more than you have to? New customers at Mint Mobile can make the switch today, and for a limited time, get unlimited premium wireless for just $15 per month. Switch now at mintmobile.com/ontexas. That's mintmobile.com/ontexas. Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for a 12-month plan. That's $15 a month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Over 50 gigabytes. May slow when network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. Additional terms apply. Again, see mintmobile.com for details. That's mintmobile.com/ontexas.
And I'm going to tell everyone about Cheers this morning. You ever have one of those nights where you're like, I didn't even do anything crazy, but somehow the next morning still hits you hard? Like, I'm talking maybe a couple of drinks out at dinner. You drink water, you go to bed at a normal time, and you still wake up feeling foggy and having low energy. That's why I tried Cheers Restore. And I'll be honest, I was skeptical at first, but I took it after my last drink. I went to sleep. The next morning, I felt normal. It honestly caught me off guard how clear-headed I was. I slept good. I got up ready to roll. And Cheers helps your body process alcohol while you sleep. It supports your liver. It helps smooth out that next day feeling. So instead of waking up feeling rough, you feel like you had way less than you actually did. So if you're going to have a drink, do it smarter. Take Cheers Restore after your last drink or before bed and wake up feeling at least 50% better or your money back. And for a limited amount of time, our listeners get 20% off your entire order with code ONTEXAS at cheershealth.com. That's cheershealth.com, code ONTEXAS for 20% off. And after you order, let them know that On Texas Football sent you.
If anybody out there is very nice in the chat, send a box or 5 cases of Cheers to the Atlanta Hawks front office. They need it.
What was the final score? That
they lost by 51. They lost by 51, but they were down as much as like 59 in a closeout game. It's the worst ass kicking I've seen since Bob Stoops was taking a knee on Dennis Francione in the third quarter in 2003. And Barry Tramel can tell us all about it.
Barry was there. How you doing, Barry?
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Good.
You remember that 77-0 game like it was yesterday?
Yeah, I remember Mike Lupica the next couple of days getting all over Stoops for running up the score. He even pulled out the play-by-play on the sports reporters, which I said, when you got college football onto New York City, you've done something. So I congratulated Stoops for getting that done.
One of the funny, I still remember that. I'm sitting there and I'm watching the game, and literally, I think OU was up by 77 at that point.
Yeah.
And Johnny Jolly, who ended up having a long NFL career for A&M, rips through the backfield from A&M, the defensive tackle, rips through the backfield, makes a tackle for loss. The score is 77-0, and he celebrates.
Yeah, that's right.
I
actually, and the next year, I think maybe at media days, I actually asked Francione about that play and said, what do you say to a player when he does that? Francione, maybe to his credit, defended him and said, hey, listen, we want our guys to play. If he's going to do it when it's 28-21, do it when it's 77-0. So, but that was pretty stark to do a little dance when you're down 77.
Yeah, he broke right through the line, and it was like y'all were going to score. OU was going to score again. Hey, Barry, we want to talk about more germane factors to the 2026 season this year. OU coming off a somewhat surprising run to the college football playoffs in 2025. Not somewhat surprising, very surprising. Some people pegged Brent Venables. It was his death march in Norman, but they survived. It felt like they used their defense and got enough out of John Mateer in the offense to get to where they got. What are you thinking of the Sooners as we look towards 2026 right now?
Well, I see a very similar team in terms of expectations and profile and all that kind of, I think they're going to be different in terms of, I don't know if the defense can be that good. They've lost a lot of depth. The front line talent is still really good. The offense has got to be better, needs to be better, should be better. So I see Oklahoma as a team that could be a playoff team again, but they lived on the edge last year. They won a tight game at Tennessee. They won a tight game at Alabama. If you don't do that, it's 8-4, and you just So I think that's very possibly what could be in store for the Sooners again. Season just on the edge. If they win some close ones, hey, playoff, here we come. If they don't, here we go, Music City Bowl.
How much, Barry, talk has there been about improving the run game? Because, for years, Oklahoma had a great running back, right, and could run the football on command when they needed to, even if they were spread offense. Last year, it was pretty impressive to get into the playoffs, average at 137 rushing yards a game. What has kind of been the talk around improving that this year? Because I think it's a big to help Mateer.
Yeah, two things going on there, or maybe three things. Two from them and one I throw in is I'm struck by how many teams across America can't run the ball all of a sudden.
Right.
Alabama couldn't run the ball.
Right.
If Alabama can't run it, something cosmic's going on.
Texas couldn't run it.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, all kinds of people. And Missouri can. How do you explain something like that? But in terms of what can the Sooners do about it, the offensive line ended up down the stretch last half of the year playing 3 freshmen. All those guys are back, so they should just be better on the line in general. And OU's made a strategic decision, which goes. It's prevalent here. Everybody knows about it, but when it happened, you didn't really understand. But OU's been playing without big tight ends.
Yeah,
they've been playing with tight ends that are really big slot backs. And they really didn't have a tight end that could block all that well. Now they went and got 3 big guys. They got a transfer from Florida. They got a transfer from Colorado State, transfer from Tennessee. And these guys are going to play a bunch. And I think that shows a commitment to try to run it. Kevin Wilson, the old OU offensive coordinator, Ohio State offensive coordinator, Indiana head coach, Tulsa head coach. He was, trying to resurrect his career last year as an analyst, making $100,000 on Brent's staff. Well, he didn't really get a new designated role, but he got a raise to $500,000. So clearly he's going to be more involved in trying to get that run game going. When he was at OU, the Sooners could run it, throw it, do whatever they wanted. So I think there's good optimism that the running game will get better if the college football gods allow it. If you can run it, I think they probably will get better, unless just the game has changed so much that you can't do it anymore.
But Jerry and Blake, I want to go through the OU schedule a little bit with Barry, if you don't mind. Barry, you look at your schedule. Obviously, that Michigan game is in Ann Arbor this year. You kind of took it to them in Norman, or OU did, from a physical standpoint. I thought I felt like you out physical the team that was a defending national champion, or one of the defending national championships teams from 2 years prior. What do you look at this schedule and say, oh boy, is it the Georgia game in Athens early in the year, first game of the conference play?
Well, I think I look at the totality of the first five. I got UTEP in New Mexico. They're doing their best to support the southwestern part of the United States. But the other three, you go to Ann Arbor, you go to Athens, you go to Dallas.
Yeah.
If Michigan had just minded its own business and kept Sharon Moore as coach, that's not something you'd have to worry about too much. But they went and hired Kyle Woodingham, who can put together a football team and knock the block off your head. So that's a game you got to worry about all of a sudden. Then Georgia, everybody knows, is going to be very difficult to win. Dallas, very difficult to win. So, the Sooners have a very tough opening 5 games in terms of trying to get in some momentum there. If very likely they're going to be 3-1 going into the Cotton Bowl, and then haven't had much success since Lincoln left against Texas. So they need to try to somehow get to 4-1, I think, after Dallas, but it's not going to be easy. So it's a front-loaded schedule that really hadn't been the case. The SEC, the backloading is what's been happening the last 2 years since they entered the SEC. So they're going to have to be ready come September. And Michigan is, they've got a veteran quarterback now. Bryce Underwood was a true freshman, not really ready. Now, he's certainly going to be better.
Yeah, look, and we talked about it from a Texas perspective. The Oklahoma schedule has some really talented quarterbacks on it. And that's when your defense, I think your defenses get challenged. You look at it, or multi-year starters, Gunnar Stockton back at Georgia, Arch Manning, Texas, Kamario Taylor at Mississippi State. When you're over there, that kid's talented. Lenoris Sellers, you're going to have Florida, Trinidad Chambliss, if he's able to play, Marcel Reed, experienced guy. There's some quarterbacks on your schedule as well, or a very talented team, or a guy that's a multi-year starting quarterback. So that presents Texas and Oklahoma have a similar challenge that I think they have a little bit more they're going up against from a quarterback perspective this year, whether that's multi-year starters or just a really talented player.
Yeah, and from an Oklahoma perspective, the one way you counter that is trot out a really good quarterback yourself.
Yeah.
And John Mateer had his moments, but he really, the second half of the season after the thumb injury, was not that effective. And they need him to be a second season Renaissance quarterback. They need him to blossom and be what they were hoping he would be in year one. Sometimes it doesn't happen in year one, but he's a veteran. He's a playmaker, but he can't be throwing the ball to the other team. The Sooners have a 17-0 lead in the playoff on Alabama at home. You got to win that game. All of a sudden, play here, play there at 17-10, and then Mateer throws a pick six in which there was no Sooner receiver. He had OU fans closer to that pass than he did OU receivers. So, I don't think I'm kidding either. It was over there. Literally, it was about 15 feet from some OU fans sitting on the front row. So you can't make those kind of plays. You got to, and that's one thing Texas, Arch, had some early moments, but I thought he developed really well by the end of the season. And Texas, of course, great optimism going in. and that's what you were hoping for from Mateer, but it didn't really happen. Maybe the thumb was hurt more than we thought. I don't know, but the thumb doesn't have anything to do with throwing the ball to the wrong crimson uniform. I don't think so. So he needs to play well. If he doesn't play well, all this talk is really just sort of moot, right? If he doesn't play well, the Sooners are not going to have any kind of special year. Probably 7-5, 8-4, something like that. And that's not what they want when you've got Brent Venables riding a defense this good.
I got to ask you, Trinidad Chambliss, Jerry and I've talked about him. He's the Ole Miss quarterback, obviously, that's got the injunction. Linebacker Owen Heineke has an injunction, I believe, in the state of Oklahoma. That's the linebacker. Given this new ruling that they are going to put forward, the 5 to play 5, do Oklahoma does Oklahoma think that that's going to affect Owen Heineke at all? What's the thought process there?
No, it's my understanding that the 5-on-5 doesn't it has no effect on current players in terms of seniors now. In other words, doesn't matter what sport, but if you've played 4 years and you're 13 games every year, this is not going to save you and give you a 5th year. So I don't think it'll have the 5-on-5 is not going to be affecting Owen Heineke. Now there is an appeal to the state Supreme Court. Same thing that happened with Trinidad Chambliss. The NCAA lost in the state Supreme Court of Mississippi. I assume they'll lose in the state Supreme Court of Oklahoma. I actually chatted this week with the judge in his injunction case, and the judge said it was pretty clear. The NCAA just keeps, they're willy-nilly on how they hand out waivers. They said just stick to your guns and nobody would have grounds to sue. But when you pass one here and not one here, so I think Owen Heineke is going to be cleared to play either way unless the state Supreme Court steps in. It actually helps the Sooners. They were a little thin at linebacker, and that'll make a big difference on the defense. So that adds to that depth that I was talking about. They lost 2 linebackers in the portal who were really good players, played a lot, but were ready to play more. Kobe McKenzie went down to Texas Tech. In fact, Sammy Omasigo goes to Northwestern. So that's some of that depth I talked about, that Brent's depth sort of got sliced.
Yeah.
But Owen Heineke will help, no doubt about it.
Hey, Barry, where's the fan base at on Brent Venables? Do you think? Because I think obviously they all wanted him fired going in this last season. Then he makes the playoffs. Where is the fan base at on him? And then somebody in the chat asked about Porter Moser too. Where's the fan base at on obviously Venables one and Porter 2?
The fans have come around on Brent. There's not any groundswell of anti-Brent Venables. If you're rational, which I know is a silly thing to say. We're not talking about rationality, but Brent, forget if you can take out the one loss situation. If you can just look at what Brent's done culturally. I mean, I certainly didn't think this was possible. I assume you guys didn't think this was possible, but for Brent Venables to get the Oklahoma defense back to where it was in the golden days this quickly is just remarkable to me. I never thought we'd see it again. I thought OU was going to have to ride the Heisman quarterback, throw it everywhere type culture and tradition, and that be their calling card. And for Brent to turn that ship around is remarkable. And I think most fans really appreciate that and think that's pretty cool. And we'll look and see if the offense can get up to gear, but he's won the fans over. Now he can lose them, go 6-6. He's back where he was a year ago.
Yeah.
Porter Moser is he's got virtually no support among the fan base, but the new athletic director, Roger Denny, supports him and said, listen, we're not firing coaches just because they had poor NIL money. He said, we didn't support Porter enough on that with building the roster. Basketball today is won in the offseason with how much you're going to pay. So and that's largely true. And then maybe hope your shots fall in March. That's really what it comes down to. And OU wasn't at the bottom of the SEC, but was close to the bottom in NIL compensation. So he's gonna try to beef up the resources for Porter Moser and see if that makes a difference. But the fans are down on Porter. One NCAA tournament in 5 years, didn't win that year when he got there. So that's not ideal, and that's not Oklahoma's standard.
Hey, we got one last question for you here, Barry. Thank you for joining us, by the way. Appreciate your knowledge. As always, Nathaniel Loper here asks, Barry, what is the one weakness that scares Oklahoma fans heading into this season? Is it, you mentioned John Mateer's progress or lack thereof. Is that the big question mark around OU, or is it something else?
I think it's the running game. You guys brought it up, and it's clear that's the problem. I mean, and that's part John Mateer as well. If Mateer's throwing it better, the running game will open up and they can do more. But I think everybody's gung-ho on the defense. Kicking game was great. And so that offense, and, it's a reverse bizarro world, right? Can Oklahoma find an offense to make the defense proud? That's not the way it's worked here for about 20 years. So, but that's what it is. The offense, and we saw it in Dallas, right? I mean, OU's offense just did nothing that day in the Cotton Bowl, and the defense hung in there, and finally everybody stood up and said, what's going on? They said we play all day and Oklahoma's not going to score. And they just gotta get better on offense. And that starts, I think, with the running game. They beefed up the receiving corps is better than it was last year, and it wasn't bad last year. And they'll have some playmakers, but they just got to run the ball more and better, and they just didn't do it last season.
Barry, thank you so much, my man. I appreciate you. Good luck. Again, that's Barry Tramel, Tulsa World, longtime OU beat writer. I saw you at the Cotton Bowl, Barry, in pregame doing your show. It's good to see you again.
All right, thanks for having me, guys.
We'll see you in July at SEC Media Days in Tampa.
See you, buddy. Take care. He's always very knowledgeable. I mean, I talked to the judge.
Yeah.
That's a guy that does his homework, right?
Yes.
That's what
yes.
you
been really good for a long time.
Absolutely.
We'll have him back on after Lincoln Riley gets fired. I'm sure he'll come on for that.
I was gonna ask him about Tate Swindell's pants being above the thighs.
The
kicker.
He's like me. He's not on board with the pants wearing these days.
All right, guys, before we move on here, I need to tell everyone this morning about PrizePicks, and I'm telling you, it's May. The weather's perfect. Well, almost. It's raining a little bit, but everything's rolling. And if you're just casually watching games right now with nothing on them, you're doing it wrong. You're leaving way too much fun on the table, because this is where it changes everything. Now every possession matters, every at-bat matters, every shot, every pitch. You're locked in from start to finish. You're not just watching anymore. You got a little juice in it. And, there's a chance to cash in as well. And the best part is it's easy. No deep dives, no complicated nonsense. You're just picking more or less on player stats, points, rebounds, hits, strikeouts, whatever you're already watching. Build your lineup, submit it, and you're good. Takes maybe a minute. And you've got options everywhere: basketball, baseball, golf. You can stick to one or mix and match across everything. Whatever's on, it fits. And so today we're going to do exactly that and bounce around a little bit. We got Marcus Smart to go more than 5.5 rebounds plus assists. He's been all over it lately, averaging 9.4 in his last 5 against Houston. So feels smart. We're rolling with former Longhorn Jordan Spieth to go less than 71.5 strokes. Last time he teed it up at Blue Monster, he fired a 65, so we're going to take that. And in baseball, we got Jack Flaherty going more than 3.5 strikeouts. Unfortunately, he's historically handled the Rangers pretty well, and he's been dealing in his recent outings. That's it. So that's the play. So just like that, you trust your gut, you lock it in, and now every single moment means something. And PrizePicks is available in all 50 states, including right here in the great state of Texas. So if you haven't jumped in yet, now's the time. Download the app. Use code HMA. Play $5, they'll give you $50 in lineups instantly. Code HMA get you 50. Simple as that. And as always, play smart, play responsibly, play PrizePicks. And Jerry, I'll let you tell everyone about Von Lane this morning.
Yeah. By the way, man, LeBron James 1 for 29 in clutch scenario shots as a Laker. Woo. All right. Yes, that's on the Von Lane. I just wanted to mention that. I thought your seat is already taken care of, right? You know what's fun? Booking a flight, paying for your ticket, and then finding out you don't actually have a seat. That's what some airlines are doing now. Lowest fares don't come with a seat assignment. You either wait until check-in and hope for the best, or you pay up $80, sometimes more, just to know where you're sitting. And now they're charging for bags too. It's like subscription service for frustration. We've all been there. Here's the alternative, the only alternative, Von Lane. Your seat already taken care of, a big oversized leather seat and a cabin with only 22 of them. Your bags, bring them, no charge. TSA doesn't exist. You board at a private terminal inside a nice hotel, and from there it's complimentary Wi-Fi powered by Starlink. Snacks, drinks, hot towel service, and meals on select routes. It's what flying was supposed to feel like. Von Lane has also added more departure times between Houston and San Antonio and Fort Worth and Austin. So there are more options to fit your schedule. They serve Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Fort Worth, Plano, the Woodlands, Nashville, Memphis, Atlanta, and Knoxville. Book at vonlane.com. Use code OTF26 for $20 off your first trip. What is Von Lane? It's a private jet on wheels and a very comfortable one.
Okay, guys, we got super chats we need to get into this morning. And let's start with Devon here. Thank you, Devon. Over under 1,500 yards combined rushing for Hollywood Smothers and Raleek Brown.
My initial thought was to go over, and then I started thinking about Derek Cooper.
And injuries.
Yeah, I just look. I mean, those guys between the two of them had what 2,100 rushing yards a year ago. If it weren't for Derek Cooper, I would say yes, but I don't know if Derek Cooper's going to evolve into the close it out back. So I'm going to say over, but not by a bunch. Not by a bunch.
And I'm always looking at this as 12-game season.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm looking at 12-game season. So here's, instead of a prediction, I hope it's over. Because if it's over, Texas is effective running the football when they want to, when they have to. That's the way I'm like with the arch passing slat. So somebody threw out 3,800 yards, and I said I hope it's under, because that means Texas is running the football well. So now on the flip side with something like this, I hope it's over, because that means Texas is running the football in the SEC against a brutally hard schedule, and that is very positive for the Longhorn season in that scenario. If we look up in December and those guys have 1,200 yards combined, be interesting to see the loss column, unless there's major injury.
And our next super chat this morning comes from, let's see here, Bald Father Bets. The viral drop video. Of course, we didn't watch the video, but we talked about this the other day, guys. How much in the short game was because of Arch's ball speed is so much faster than Quinn's was? It seemed to throw receivers off.
I agree. I think that he wasn't extraordinarily accurate in the short game, especially on crossing routes. And we've talked about how people throw the football. I mean, Quinn feathers the ball as well as you're going to see. And I mean, he'll feather it 20 yards down the field, by the way, on comeback routes. Right? Arch is more of a driver of the football, right? I mean, he's kind of low trajectory, drive it to the point. I do think that there was a change from a receiver perspective of those guys who had been there that were accustomed to catching this feathered ball from Quinn largely to a more direct route from Arch. But it is something that they can get used to, in my opinion, and will get used to over time. I'm more concerned about Arch's accuracy on crossing routes. And I'm talking shallow crosses, not deep crosses. He's fine on deep crosses, but shallow crosses, because that's where accuracy and ball speed combined more so, in my opinion. And that seems to be something, if there's anything that Arch did struggle all the way through the year, I think it's that.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we have a super chat from Juan Garza. Juan, appreciate you as always. How would 2025 Texas versus 2025 Texas Tech match up? Do you have a score prediction?
Very low scoring. Very low scoring. 13-7, 14-7. Texas Tech would have given Texas real issues with pass rush. Real issues.
Yep.
It would have been a low-scoring game unless there's busted coverages and plays and returns.
I would just say this. I mean, Baron Morton turned the ball over. I would have taken Texas in that matchup late in the year. Early in the year, I would have taken Texas Tech. But I think Texas finished as a much stronger team than Texas Tech down the stretch. I mean, Texas Tech didn't score against Oregon. I mean, you could say what you want, but Arch Manning is he could run the football. Baron Morton couldn't run the football to save his life. So I feel like Texas would have had a +1 in the run game. They would have manufactured something. I don't think there's any question that Steve Sarkisian is a better offensive coach than the Tech offensive coordinator. Tech wasn't used to playing. The Tech offense clearly was not used to playing a defense that was that skilled coming out of the Big 12. They just weren't. They're used to the BYU defense being the best they played. And Oregon was like, that just don't work that way.
Yeah. Rocky Poor said it would have been similar to the Oregon score. I could go with that, like 17-7-ish. You know, because Texas would have played enough off coverage to give them a score. Would have played enough break.
You had to put the off coverage in there a little bit.
I mean, if you play bend to no break for 60 minutes, you're going to probably give up a score.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, maybe not against Oklahoma, but Tech would probably.
Hey, Barry was pretty forthcoming on that. He goes, I don't know if we could have sat there all day and
played all day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Baron Morton got drafted. So, I mean, like he might have punched it in once in a game if, maybe not. Now, think about Tech. They lost their starting running back before the season to ACL. So, they did lose a guy before the season, to be fair to all these teams. All right.
Black Fox here. Thank you for your super chat. Says, thank you guys for all that you do. Y'all get me through my morning runs and make me feel like I am back home. If only I could convince management / my wife to move back to Texas.
Isn't that the same thing?
It is.
Why are you separating the two?
He didn't actually separate it. That's the whole issue, Jerry.
Yeah.
He knows where his bread is buttered.
Some people ask about recruiting. A lot of people have asked about John Meredith. I would there was a reason after I got back from North Crowley a couple weeks ago on OTF.com that I said that recruitment had changed. And I said on here too that I thought Texas was in front and Alabama was actually second. And I think Texas is a pretty decent, healthy lead in the recruitment of John Meredith. Now, these things still have to get to the closeout point. Somebody asked about how long his recruitment would go on. The one thing I will say about that is, his OV schedule currently is Alabama the last weekend in May. I said on OTF.com last week, I think it was, I said, I'm not so sure that actually happens. So I'm not sure Alabama's going to bring him in if they don't think they really have a shot at it. So the interesting thing is his Texas visit is June 5th through 7th, and he's had A&M scheduled the 12th through 14th. He will not make that a visit that weekend because that is the OTE 7-on-7 Nationals it's either in Las Vegas or LA. So he's going to play in that. And that's Nationals. He's playing that. He's not making an OV that weekend. This recruitment, it won't shock me if it comes to a conclusion a little earlier than people think. But a lot will come down to if he reschedules an A&M OV. If he doesn't, then let's just see how long this goes on. But I think Texas is in a good spot for John Meredith. But they still got to close it out. That's the one thing. You say things like this on video, and then it's like, Jerry or Bobby said this guy's going there. I'm caveat. You still have to close these things out. So there's NILs. It can be unpredictable. The rug gets pulled all the time. But I think Mark Orpha and Will Muschamp done a really good job in this recruitment. I'd always been told it would come down to in-state schools, and even while it was Texas and Bama, I thought Bama was second. Still, I'm not sure he was going that far away from home. So it's still going to come back down to Texas and Texas A&M, but I think Texas is in the best position. I think A&M knows they're in the best position because they've tried to turn it up even more here in the last week to try to ensure they can keep the recruitment going to possibly get an OV.
All right. I tell you what, before we get to our last couple of questions, Bobby, why don't you tell everyone one more time about South Point Dodge?
Yeah, there's nothing like Texas football, and nothing runs like a Ram. South Point Dodge is Austin's Ram headquarters. And during right now, the deals are hotter than a Saturday in DKR, even though it's raining outside. Huge savings on Ram trucks and Jeep SUVs, plus exclusive perks for On Texas Football listeners. 90 days to make your first payment, and we'll ship your ride anywhere in Texas or beyond. More than 600 vehicles in stock. So whether you need a workhorse or a weekend warrior, we've got you covered. Visit southpointdodge.com or come see us off I-35 in South Austin. Get to the point at South Point Dodge. Thank you for your sponsorship of On Texas Football. We appreciate it very, very much.
Hey, Blake, I want to add one. Somebody asked about Monshun sales. The thing to look at, remember or look at with Monshun sales recruitment, when he left his unofficial visit to Texas, his official visit was originally scheduled for June 5th through 7th. But I said at the time, only if he's not in the state track meet, because that's June 6th. I think he'll be in the state track meet. So the key for Monshun sales in Texas is he willing to bump the Miami visit June 19th through 21st? If he knocks that one out and schedules Texas, game on in this recruitment. That because I think it's really up to sales right now. Miami's been recruiting him a long time. He likes Miami, even though I look at Indiana, Alabama, then Miami and Ohio State in his recruitment. But will he bump Miami for Texas? Because I think ideally you come in the same weekend as Eastern Royal if you're really super serious about Texas. And
that's the wide receiver out of Indianapolis.
Yeah.
That's one of the top players in the country, period.
Somebody asked about Jerry Outhouse. Texas has never really recruited Jerry Outhouse. That's the safety / corner. I think it'll be a safety from North Crowley that decommitted from Georgia. Texas never really pursued him heavily. Oh, yeah. Here's an interesting one. Women's beach volleyball has a chance to win it all this year. National championships are in Gulf Shores. Is that next week, Devon Gamble? I think that's coming up next week in Gulf Shores. Best of luck. There's a reason Stein Metzger was hired. He's won 2 national championships, and he already has Texas in the hunt. So congrats to the young ladies and coach and that staff, and see if they can go get it done.
And that's
Is it second year of playing a real schedule? Like I think it is the second year. That'd be. I don't care the resources and what you have at Texas. If he happened to get that thing done in year 2, because USC and UCLA have been dominant in the sport. Dominant. And he was the guy at UCLA, and then USC overtook him. But if you can go get it done that quick, man, hat tip. It's this weekend, 1st through 3rd. Thank you, guys.
Also important to note that it's somewhat significant because of the director's cup. The first 3 seeds are Texas, Stanford, and UCLA. And our buddy Dr. Brett has those 3 as the top 3 projected finish. So it's going to play a major role when it comes to that.
Stein's trying to do something at Texas that's been proven very difficult to do. Be a national champion outside the state of California. I think Loyola Marymount won it last year. Before that had been USC and UCLA.
You talking about beach volleyball?
Beach volleyball, yeah. I mean, it's been dominated. And, of course, college beach volleyball just started growing as a sport here in the last 3 years. You have a lot of schools now adding it. But it's been dominated by the state of California, as it should be, as you would think it would be. Grow up playing beach volleyball there.
Before we get out of here, I want to bring this up to Josh Roberts. Put this in the chat. We always bring this type of stuff up. He says it's my wife and mine anniversary. 22 years. Hook 'em for life. Congratulations to both you and your wife.
Happy anniversary.
Congratulations, Josh.
Yeah,
that's great.
All right.
Long
that's
time
gonna do it
management.
for today.
Oh yeah, wife/management. Is she gonna let you move back to Austin?
Long time management.
Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football presented by South Point Dodge. We want to thank South Point along with Mint Mobile, Prize Picks, Von Lane, and Cheers all for sponsoring today's show. And thank you all for tuning in as well. Again, Bobby, I know we got bases loaded here in a little bit, about to record it, but what else?
We got the live stream. Jerry and Ryan going to be talking around 3:00, taking your questions, kind of an Ask Me Anything Friday afternoon, brought to you by our friends over at Garage Beer. And then also this weekend, we've got a number of podcasts coming out that we think you'll like. Really, one of the questions we're going to ask this weekend is, what is everybody's trap game? What is everybody's trap game for 2026 on that schedule for the University of Texas? Myself, Jerry, Rod, CJ, Jeff, Hank, we're all going to try to chime in on what we think that trap game will be. But a number of different pieces coming out. Also, obviously, Arkansas in softball, Mississippi State in baseball, a lot of stuff going on. Hopefully, beach volleyball wins a natty this weekend. We see the tower lit up orange.
Well, we hope you all have an outstanding weekend. We'll be back on Monday morning. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you then.
Hook 'em horns.